All the percussion, it makes it much shinier.
Good morning. Welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living. I don't know. Now you can, right? If I stand here, thank you. Yes. Welcome again. Good morning. The Spirit in me greets the Spirit in you, and it's wonderful to have you here out there on Zoom. Looks like my head's cut off, but what the heck, they'll get the point. And YouTube listeners later, that'll be wonderful too. So welcome to everyone. It's good to be here. Here in the Center for Spiritual Living in Las Cruces, our vision is a world in loving partnership for the good of all. And everyone's hearing me now? Yes? Good, thank you. Welcome to anyone visiting for the first time. There are packets of information at each door, and they include a gift certificate for the bookstore, so don't miss out. Practitioner Teresa Valenzuela is leading a book study on Julia Cameron's book, The Listening Path, The Creative Art of Attention. I'm in that one, as are several of you, and it's wonderful, and you can join at any time. We meet on Tuesdays from 1:30 to 3, so welcome. And today is our annual meeting, and everyone is invited to the potluck that will follow the service, and the meeting starts at 1. It's important that we have a quorum and get all our votes in and done, and it's once a year. We can handle it. Here at the Center for Spiritual Living, we believe in the power of prayer. We call it spiritual mind treatment or affirmative prayer. And there are prayer requests on the back of each seat in front of you. Please feel free to fill them out if there's anything that's weighing on you. You can put it in the God can in the back or into the collection plate. They will be gathered, and a wonderful group of ministers and practitioners from the 4 New Thought churches will pray over them. And we are so blessed to have that experience. So please give us things to pray about. Also, if your prayers have been answered, please fill out a gratitude form so we can be grateful with you that life is working and that prayer is working. And there's a prayer button in our website. So if you're at home and you want prayer, just think about it, hit the website. Oh, and if there's anything after service that you're still carrying and would like to have prayer on, there are a number of us with stoles on. Doug and Tina are in the back, and we can pray with you briefly before the luncheon. So have that in mind too. And don't go away loaded with anything except love. Now it's time for song, silence, and prayer. I'm so grateful, Spirit, to be here with these wonderful people all around the country, perhaps. And I know that we are one in spirit, that we are right now in the divine flow, that flow of joy, prosperity, peace, wisdom. And we know that guidance is available to us in every moment. So we quiet ourselves and we receive and we live in the blessing that is a life in spirit. I know this is true for everyone here and everyone listening, that we are all in spirit together, all one and all expressing in our unique ways. We are so blessed, and so it is.
So it is.
Our reading today is from The Science of Mind, the textbook by Ernest Holmes. It's from the section on the teaching of Jesus. And if you haven't looked at that part of the book, I think it's very cool. It's one of my favorite parts. From the Bible, the quote, "Let not your heart be troubled. Ye believe in God, believe also in me." His disciples were depressed, having an instinctive sense that Jesus was about to depart from them. They were filled with sadness. It was on the eve of his betrayal that he spoke these words, "Let not your heart be troubled." With the calm certainty which has ever been given to the believing. He was not afraid. He had already plumbed the depths of human existence and penetrated into the beyond. He knew that he was an immortal being. Our hearts are troubled over many things, and our mental burdens often become unbearable. It seems at times as though a cup of bitterness were being held to unwilling lips with the demand that they drink. Jesus, standing at the threshold of his greatest experience, foreknew that he would turn apparent defeat into glorious victory. From the calm depths of an undisturbed soul, he spoke words of comfort to those of lesser understanding. He told them to believe in God, and because of their belief in God, to believe also in him. Again, he is referring to the individual I as the outward manifestation of the universal I am. We are to believe in ourselves because we believe in God. The two are one. We are to know that passing events cannot hinder the onward march of the soul. The temporal imperfection of the human cannot dim the eternal integrity of the divine. And so it is.
Okay, so we're thinking about emotions this month. So I chose to do this song because it's one of my favorites and because it kind of looks at the cost benefits of relationships. Desperado, yeah, I'm sure a lot of you know it, so please sing along.
for reasons. These things that are pleasing you will hurt you sometimes. Don't you draw the queen of diamonds, she'll beat you if she's able. The queen of hearts is always your best bet. Well, it seems to me some fine things have been laid upon your table, but you only want ones that you can't get. Desperado, oh, you ain't getting no younger. The pain and your hunger that drive you home. And freedom, that's just some people talking. Your prison is walking through this world all alone. Well, you think it's cold in the wintertime, sun won't snow and the sky won't shine. It's hard to tell the nighttime from the day. Losing all your highs and lows, and it's funny how the feeling goes away. Desperado, why don't you come to your senses? Get down from your fences, open the gates. It may be raining, there's a rainbow above you. You better let somebody love you. Oh, you better let somebody love you before it's too
Thank you, Sarah. That was beautiful. Thank you so much. Let somebody love you before it's too late. That's a great message. We'll see how it fits in. So good morning, everybody. You all can hear me too, I hope. Okay. I'm Reverend Bonnie, the community spiritual leader here at the center, and it's always a pleasure to be with you. This month, as Sarah said, we are focused on living everyday wonder, and we're focused on looking at emotions and how they move in and through our lives and impact that experience of everyday wonder. So when I was a kid, I had some fantasies that I kind of played in my head with, and they were always about me being this great hero or heroine. One of my favorites was emulating Wendy on Peter Pan, where I could hold everybody's hand and we could fly over the hill between my house and where the school was. And I could get everybody to school, and they loved it because they didn't have to hike over that hill to get there. I loved that feeling of flying. And so in my mind, I was doing that a lot, just helping people fly over whatever that hill or that obstacle was. Later on, I had a bigger fantasy, and that happened when Vietnam was happening, the Vietnam War. And I had this fantasy that I gave instruments to everybody on both sides. And then I had one of those stairs that had a platform at the top and that got pushed in the middle. In my mind, a war was everybody's here and then everybody's here and they're just fighting. I didn't understand what it really looked like at that time. But anyway, so I'd given out these instruments. We pushed this stage into the middle. I climbed up and I was conducting music, and everybody made music and they stopped fighting. And that was my huge fantasy. And I did that over and over in my head. Sarah said, brilliant. So no wonder that this vision of ours that we hold at the Centers for Spiritual Living, a world that works for everyone, spoke to me. I really wanted to see a world that is working for everyone, where everyone is coming together and everyone is enjoying life. Also, as a kid, my mother occasionally took me to the Wednesday night testimonial services for the Christian Science Church. And on Wednesday nights, people would get together and they would take turns sharing how Spirit, how God had worked in their lives during the week. And I loved hearing those stories, especially the ones around healing. And so when I discovered Ernest Holmes, I also love the stories that he shares in some of his writings around healing and the healing that was taking place in this movement, especially early on, and what we still aim for and experience in our lives today. And in my last talk 2 weeks ago, I talked about Ernest Holmes' phrase, "Love is the grandest healing power in the universe." And so my original thought around that phrase was that if I could love enough, could really love enough, all the ills in the world would stop. There's that hero complex again. So when things beyond my ability to heal started showing up, at least healing in the way that I wanted to see it happen, I began to experience grief, an emotion that I had previously not had a lot of familiarity with, at least not consciously. And of course, as you all know, in the last couple of years, it's been very prevalent in my life and something I've been consciously looking at and how one goes through this experience. My first introduction to the concept of grief actually came back when I was learning nonviolent communication. And I spoke to that a couple of weeks ago too. And I told you all that this week I would tell you what happens and what they teach when you get your beautiful statement together that says, "I need this, would you be willing to do this?" And the answer is no. That's not what I had in mind. No, I don't want to do that. And the response, what they teach us, is that we need to grieve the fact they said no. Now, when they told me that in the beginning, I'm like, really? I just sit here and grieve it? There's no way to manipulate them to do what I want? I'm not sure I like this. But yeah, what they said was you grieve the fact that they've said no. You allow yourself to realize that it's impacted you and you grieve about it in your own, you take that consciously into your own thinking. Then they say, you move into a place of empathy. You look at what's going on for that person in their life that is causing them to need to tell you no, that they can't meet your need. So I'm going to give you the words from Marshall Rosenberg's book, Nonviolent Communication, directly. Empathy in hearing someone's no. Because our tendency is to read rejection into someone else's no, or I don't want to, these are important messages to be able to empathize with. If we take them personally, we may feel hurt without understanding what's actually going on in the other person. When we shine the light of consciousness on the feelings and needs behind someone else's no, however, we may become cognizant of what they are wanting that prevents them from responding as we would like. So it takes it another step. It moves it out of where we are, and of course we grieve first, then we move into this empathy and have question about what's going on for them that might cause them to say no to meeting our needs. And recently in the Spirituality and Health magazine, I always share with you because I love this guy, Rabbi Rami Shapiro answers questions that people send in. And one of the questions was, why do bad things happen to good people? And I think that's a question that we often grapple with. And so remember that my original thinking was that if I was good enough, if I loved enough, that would change the world. And so when I was a good girl and I did everything I thought I was supposed to, and that didn't happen, then I had to look at this question. And it was one that I spent a whole semester with, studying the book of Job in college around why do bad things happen to good people. So this was Rabbi Shapiro's answer. There is no one in charge of what happens and no escape from what happens. The challenge isn't to explain why things happen, whether it's fate, destiny, karma, divine reward, or divine punishment, some of the things we tell ourselves, but to live open to what happens next. When bad things happen, grieve. When good things happen, rejoice. But don't imagine that you deserve one or the other. Just stay vulnerable to both. Wow. So that, again, for me, was a different concept. To look at, it's not about what we're doing, whether we deserve it or not. It's not whether we've got all our ducks in a row. It's just allowing life to happen and staying open to what happens. Remember, I talked about a few weeks ago, my tendency to shut down. Staying open, allow myself to grieve or rejoice. And again, not attributing it to my worthiness. We just happen to be looking at that in our Beyond Limits class as well. The idea of not having to answer the why things are, why things work the way they do, but rather the how. What is happening and how is it happening for us? So that idea is to stay vulnerable or open to whatever life is bringing us. And so I realized then that it doesn't work in the way that I originally thought. It's not about how good I am or how much love I can bring into the world. And so I started, of course, looking for, well, then how does it work? What is going on in life as we walk this experience? And several months back, I think I shared with you from The Secret Teachings of Plants. And in here, I came up with some surprise answers or metaphors that have helped me see a different way of looking at what our role is in the world. In here, he talks about what happens, and I'll read this to you, if one of the heart's pacemaker cells is removed from the body and kept alive and placed on a slide. So he's telling us scientifically what's going on with the heart pacemaker cells. Then he puts, what a horrible thing to do. But then he goes on, it will begin to lose its regular beating pattern and start to fibrillate, which is that wild, out of control beating. To be wildly and irregularly until it dies. But if you take another pacemaker cell and put it close to the first, they do not need to touch. Their beating patterns will synchronize and they will beat in unison. A fibrillating cell placed next to a non-fibrillating pacemaker cell will stop fibrillating and entrain or begin to beat in unison with the healthy cell. Well, that was like an aha for me. Again, I started to see that as each of us are individual expressions, we could say we were cells in the body of God. If one is out here fibrillating because it has somehow felt or decided or believes or is experiencing the feeling of being separate from the whole, separate from source, separate from the body, it's going to start acting crazy, going out of sync with the healthy rhythm of life. And our job is to be a pacemaker cell, to hold that space, to stay in the rhythm of our intended way of being. We don't have to go in there and forcibly do anything. We stay in our rhythm. And as we do that, then as a pacemaker cell, their beating patterns synchronize and they beat in unison. So I started thinking about what examples I might have of this. Think about a distraught child, a kid that's screaming and out of control. If you start yelling at them, stop crying, or that phrase I said last time, I'll give you something to cry about, what do? They don't settle down. It escalates the situation. But if you can stay calm and breathe calmly and either hold them or give them the space and stay with your breathing, they eventually calm down. They move into the breathing pattern that you have set for them. And they will bring themselves back to center. And I think that's true for adults as well. If we can maintain ourselves as pacemaker cells, keeping that calm inner pace that is connected with spirit. Others then can find their pace. And I know that it seems like this world is never at a loss for things that we desire to fix, to save or rescue or change. Another mass shooting, these things get to us emotionally. They're those emotional experiences where we feel like there's not a lot we can do. And yet we want to see it different in the world. And these things are happening because people have lost their sight of their oneness with Source, their oneness with each other, and their oneness with the divine. They're feeling separate from the body of life. And that's causing that fibrillation, that out of sync behavior. So once again, in my mind, since I can't go to Buffalo, go to these places where things are happening, I need to focus on, instead of what I can do, how I need to be. I want to be a pacemaker cell in this world that just continues to stay calm and hold that space. As practitioners of religious science, that's what we are taught to do when we work with people and when we are practicing this in our lives, that we stay in our centered space, no matter what is going on in the world around us. And that is not easy to do. So for me, this visual of a pacemaker cell really helped. I was like, okay, I can see myself staying there and allowing whatever's going on to self-regulate. As we move into affirmative prayer, as we center through meditation, whatever we use to keep ourselves in the pace that was intended for us as humans, loving expressions of the spirit, as we do that, as we are that place where love and law work together through us, then those non-fibrillating cells, we are one of them, we stay healthy, we keep ourselves healthy, then the others can synchronize to us. So for me, that was, again, a different way of looking at my role in the world. So let's get back to that idea of love is the grandest healing power in the world, in the universe. Originally, I saw that as a mandate, as to what I needed to do. You know, I got to get out there and do something. I wanted to bring love into all these fibrillating situations in the world and be that savior that just turned the whole world around. Like it was up to me to do it all. With the pacemaker metaphor, I was able to shift how I see that. We are still love in the world. We are still that place where love moves through us into the world, but we're setting a pace that starts first with self-love. Because if we're setting a pace, we're essentially setting an example. So we start with self-love, then we're looking at the God in us, love in us, expressing through us, and then it's moving out into the world. And we don't have to touch or manipulate situations out there. So when we allow this to happen, those entities, that stuff that's going on out there is left to find their own interconnection to Source. They are one with Source, just like we are. So we're allowing that process to take place within them. So when I thought about it again, love is the grandest healing power in the universe. It didn't say Bonnie is the grandest healing power in the universe. Love, which is Source, which is God. And that shifted that over to allowing it to move through as opposed to me trying to manipulate or cause something to happen. I saw the pacemaker cells sitting there next to the other cells as different than the surgeon going in and trying to fix something. Not that that can't happen. I'm just using this as a metaphor, so I want you to be clear about that. Ernest Holmes says that treatment is not willing things to happen. It is to provide within ourselves an avenue through which they may happen. a different take for me on what is being expected. The hero essentially robs the person of their own power, of their own strength. And when we believe that everyone is part of source, that this fibrillating entity is part of source, they just have separated themselves. They've been separated in some way. They're still part of source. So when we know that, we don't want to rob them of that power. Jesus also taught, "It is done unto you as you believe." And Ernest Holmes picked up on that and said, yes, that's the way it works. It is done unto you as you believe. And as I contemplated those words, done unto you, again, I started to hear that there's no coercion there. It's done unto me as I believe. I don't create the power of love. It is done unto me. I let it move in and through me. And in this morning's reading, thank you, Judy, for the reading, the teaching of Jesus that was being talked about by Ernest Holmes, he said, he told them to believe in God, and because of their belief in God, to believe also in him. And further on, we believe in ourselves because we believe in God. And I started playing that phrase over in my head again, because I think traditionally, when I was told that Jesus taught, because you believe in God, you need to believe in him, it was interpreted as worship him. But believe in him is different. If I say, I believe in you, what am I saying? I love you. I believe you can do it. I'm not taking over. I believe in you. So what he was saying, and this was at the time when he was getting ready to face that end of his life challenge, he didn't say, take up arms and rescue me. He didn't say, do this for me, take over and do this for me. Nor did he say, worship me. He said, because you believe in God, believe in me. And I now think that means believe that I can do this. And because we know that he is the great example, we know we can do it also. Again, a real different take for me on how that is being interpreted. Ernest Holmes concluded that section by saying, we are to know that passing events, stuff that's happened, cannot hinder the onward march of the soul. The temporal imperfection of the human cannot dim the eternal integrity of the divine. We are to know this. So when we know that, when we know about any situation and anyone, that the onward march of the soul continues no matter what, that no matter what happens in this human experience, it cannot dim the eternal integrity of the divine. When we know that, we can say, I believe in you. I believe in me. We can stay pacemakers, setting that pace instead of having to rush in there and try and be saviors. We're allowing each person to be part of the one and find their inner equilibrium as we keep our pace, knowing that they will eventually find that pace as well in their own way and in their own time. So I want to share a story with you, and this just happened last weekend when I was at a friend's son's bar mitzvah in Albuquerque. My friend is deaf, and we've worked together for many years in the deaf community, and her son was the person having the bar mitzvah. So there were several deaf people from the community at the bar mitzvah as well. And in the morning, one of my other friends came up to me and signed to me, do you remember this guy that was with him? And I'm like, well, he looks kind of familiar. And he introduced me again. And this guy says, you got me my job. Well, I had a job many years ago helping deaf people get jobs. He said, I'm still working there. He's getting ready to retire in a couple of years from this same job. I'm like, yay, congratulations. That makes me really happy. I'm glad you did that. And he was so excited to see me again. I sit down, I'm thinking, okay, well, I did my job. In my mind, I didn't see deafness as a hindrance to working. I saw it as something we accommodate if necessary, but I did my job. I helped this guy get a job. Well, later that evening, we had the dinner dance, and he came up to me again and he pulls out an envelope and he pulls out a letter and he opens it up and he says, read. So I'm reading it, I scanned, and at the bottom is my signature. I look back at the top, 1994. I had sent him a letter telling him he'd gotten this job, and he had kept it for 28 years. My point is that when we're doing our part, we're sitting there holding that truth, knowing the highest and best for whoever. I didn't do the job for him. I helped to carve out a space where he could go in and do this job, and he did it for 28 years. He's still doing it. We don't know, as we stay in that pacemaker role, we never know who and how we might impact others around us, because we're allowing them to find their pace. He did it. He kept that job. He's been doing the work. I totally even forgot about it until he showed me the letter. So again, when we remain pacemaker cells, we never know who and what is going to stop fibrillating around us and entrain with us to beat in unison with the health that we are bringing into the experience. Picture that. We speak of Jesus, like I said, as the great example, not the great exception, because we believe, as he said, or we assume he taught, these and greater things will you do. So we know that we also can be that pacemaker cell. We can be that example of love in the world. It starts with belief in God, the God within us, believing in ourselves, and then believing in others. Again, with that attitude of, I believe you can do this. No matter what is going on, no matter the emotional state that is present in someone, if we believe in them, we know that they have it within them, then we just hold that space, believe in them, and stay that pacemaker cell. A place where love resides and is thus, it turns, as Ernest Holmes said, an apparent defeat into glorious victory. When the world around you is fibrillating and out of sync with source, which it continually seems to look like it is, when the heart of a friend is in grief or vibrating out of control for whatever reason, when it appears that society has completely lost its mind, all of these things are for us to remember who we are. And to me, my new picture is a pacemaker cell, a place where I stay centered and grounded in truth so that others around me can stop fibrillating and move into that same place. A place where love is allowed to be expressed and others can synchronize to it. And so it is. So take a moment and let's bring those thoughts and those ideas within. Thank you, practitioners, for surrounding the room. And know that the practitioners are holding that space for you all the time when they do the prayer work on Tuesdays. If you give them a call, our job is to stay in that place, the pacemaker, and we call each other when we're not in that place so that someone else can hold that for us. And you can do that for yourselves and for each other. So as you go within, breathe into your heart center. See if you can feel its calm beat as you're sitting here in the calm and safe space, or at home, or as you watch this later. Take a deep breath in and know that your true nature is one with the one, is one with the body of all humanity, with God expressing in and through all humanity and this entire universe. And our true nature is to beat in unison, to allow love to be that primary source. And as we keep our focus there and calm our own inner essence, we see the world around us calming with us, moving into sync, finding their own inner power, allowing themselves to become in unison with the flow of love and light that moves through each one of us. So as we hold that visual, we move into a space of gratitude, because it is the gratitude, knowing right now, right here, this is so. This is the way it works. We are grateful. We are grateful as we release these words, taking with us this awareness, this visual, this idea that we are pacemakers in this world. And for that, I am exceedingly grateful, and we say together, and so it is. Thank you, practitioners, for your service.
This is a song I wrote. It's called Love is the Bridge. And I dedicate it this morning to each of you.
I'm on you with love's pure vision. I see you in God's perfect light. How beautiful your holiness. You shine forever, clear and bright. Take my hand, walk with me. Love lights the way to freedom. Wake from tide, past no more. In radiant innocence, our hearts reborn. Take my hand, forgiveness the key, which opens the door that only love can see. Love strips all veils, guilt and fear. So we see heaven now, so we see heaven here. Love is the bridge to God's own heart, a gracious way, a spirit flame, crossing me, thankful praise for all creation sings love's name. Take my hand, walk with me. Love lights our way, freedom, wake from time, past no more. In radiant innocence, our hearts reborn. Take my hand, forgiveness the key, which opens the door that only love can see. Love strips all veils of guilt and fear. So we see heaven now, so we see heaven here. I see you now in heaven's joy. I find only truth in your face. Your glad welcome lights my way home. Our union, a safe embrace. Take my hand, walk with me. Love lights our way to freedom. Wake from time, past no more. In radiant innocence, our hearts reborn. Take my hand, that opens the door that only love can see. Love strips all veils, guilt and fear. So we see heaven now. So we see heaven here. So we see heaven here.
Thank you, Sarah. That is exactly the vision. So we can see heaven here. We want to experience that promise of heaven on earth. So let's just stay in that space. Like she talked about love. She brought in a lot of other things that I didn't even speak about, forgiveness, all of that. It's all good. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate it. So this month, we are tithing 10% of everything that comes through the center to the mission of the Aggie Cupboard. And I want to let you know that we're not passing things around yet. So there are containers at either door if you would like to make an offering to support the center. And 10% of all that comes in is given out somewhere in our community. And this month, the Aggie Cupboard is a place that is providing free supplemental food assistance to the NMSU community, including the Las Cruces and Doña Ana Community Campus students, faculty, and staff. We strive to create an atmosphere of care, concern, and support for those who may be struggling with food insecurity. The Aggie Cupboard works to educate on the prevalence of food insecurity and hunger that is being experienced by the NMSU community. And so once again, we are supporting them in that mission. So knowing that we are blessed, that we are so grateful for all that comes in and through here, please join me in saying, divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God, in me. And so it is. And we will sing, I am so blessed.
I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed.
Thank you all. Thank you for being present. So let's stick around. We have, hopefully you brought some food. Otherwise, we'll have a quick meeting and you can get the food after. So the meeting will start at 1. It's our annual meeting, and members, we really need you to stay to create that quorum and do the voting. Others are welcome to be here and see how we function and what we're all about. So you're all welcome to stay. Thank you for being here this morning. Let's stand and surround this room as you can. Peace song, Sarah? Yeah. We will be singing the peace song as we close.
Let there be peace on earth peace that was meant to be, with God as our center, and with harmony. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my song of song. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.